From my experience, the best way to remake a game is to keep all the things that made the original game great in the first place. So let's take the initiative to see what this remake has to offer. Xenonauts is supposed to be a faithful remake of the classic XCOM games of the 90s, developed and published by Goldhawk Interactive. It's a strategy game where you defend the planet against an alien invasion. Does it live up to the reputation that the older games had? Actually, I don't know, since I never knew they existed, but I did play the 2012 reboot. Well, let's take a look anyway. When you begin the game, you pick a location on the map for your initial base. This is where you do all the research and production for the war effort, and it houses all of your forces. You can have all of this in additional bases as you expand your coverage across the globe. Fighting against the aliens comes in two parts. Defending the planet means intercepting UFOs and taking them out. The air combat is automatic for the most part, but you can control where they attack from on the geoscape, and you also have a few commands during air combat, enabling afterburners, individual weapons, evasive maneuvers, but most of the time you just watch a volley of torpedoes blowing up a target. It's very simple and straightforward, and I like that given how many times you'll be doing this. You generally want to take them out over land so that a crash site is made, and you can either call in an airstrike to make some extra cash, or you can move on to the second part of the game, which is ground combat. A soldier's capabilities is based on their attributes and their loadout. You really have to pay attention to their attributes to determine which loadout would go best for them. For example, soldiers with lots of strength can handle more weight, so they would have the heavy weapons and lots of grenades, and the weaker ones would have a more basic kit. The roles don't actually do anything gameplay-wise, it's more of a UI thing for equipping default loadouts, and it just makes a common task easier. As a general rule, I like to have one sniper, one machine gun, a couple shotguns or carbines, and the rest rifles. I may have two snipers, some extra shotguns, a rocket launcher, or even a vehicle. It's all up to you though, I just like the versatility and the choices this game offers me. Most of the time, you'll be raiding UFOs that crash landed. The one thing I noticed is that these ground combat missions are not procedurally generated, but they're randomly selected from a pool of pre-made maps, at least as far as I can tell. The UFOs always crash land on the exact same spot, but the aliens and civilians are randomly placed on load time. The goal here is to kill all the aliens or capture and hold the ship for a number of turns. At the end, you'll receive alien materials and a bunch of cash, you level up your soldiers, and you fly back to base. You don't really need to do this every single time you shoot down a UFO. Most of the time, I call in an airstrike and get the cash reward, but there are times you have to do ground combat. When an alien base pops up on the map, it damages your relationship with the region it's on over time until you take it out. Same thing with the terror missions and bombardments. These things last until you stop them. Too much damage and you lose the funding entirely and the region pulls out of Xenonauts. You lose the game if you lose too many regions, and this number depends on the difficulty. So there is this inherent replayability in that you get to choose where to begin, where to allocate resources, what strategies and tactics to employ, and there's enough randomness thrown in that everyone's experience will be different. I have no idea how it compares to the games of the 90s, but as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter. I think it's a very good strategy game on its own merits. Perhaps it's exactly like the older games with a fresh coat of paint and a modern UI, or maybe there were problems with the original game and they addressed it here. I don't know, but I like the game, so how will this game do in the video game market? This was apparently available a while back on Steam's early access, so that big push when the game is first released has already been burnt up. On its official release, everything seemed quiet. All I saw were a couple active threads on Reddit, but not so much for news articles on any websites. I see Let's Plays from less than 10 people, but they do have a few thousand views. Perhaps it has something to do with the summer sale? I hear people talking about the sales on older games and less about the new releases. Xenonauts doesn't seem like it's going on sale. In a few months, I don't think we'll hear about this game too much, but the game won't completely die off. There's really no other game like it, unless you want to count the games from the 90s or the reboot, so it will stick around and it will get some exposure unless someone makes a game to replace it. That's not happening in this time frame though. If anything, you'll hear about Xenonauts when someone recommends a turn-based strategy game. It also has mod support, and the graphics and interface are simple enough that it really shouldn't take too long to make any mods, so I think we should have some major developments here in the next few months. I'm really impressed by this game. My first exposure to something like this was the 2012 reboot, which at the time I never knew was a reboot. I may have to look into seeing these older games in the future, but as for this game, I would recommend it. However, it is a very niche game with a very slow pace to it. It's not for everyone, but for those who like to customize things, plan things out, and be rewarded by moving things tactically as opposed to having that head down ass up attitude, then this is a great game for you. Regular price is $25, so it's not too bad. We'll follow up on this game in a few months. Thanks for watching!